And Mr. Weiss, has Mr. Wilson been contacted?
I don't know.
All right, if in that case, then we can wait for Mr. Weiss to appear, or you can speak to one of the public defense counsel. Do you know if he's been hired to represent you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
You
came.
went and saw him at the jail yesterday, Judge.
All right, we'll wait for Mr. Wilson to appear. Next case.
Do you know if position number one, Mrs. Damington, that's shy?
And I'll be handling that case today, Judge.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rosenberg.
Your Honor, which position is this? Excuse
One.
me. What? Okay, thank you.
This is State versus Tittlady Babington Ashay. I may be completely mispronouncing that, but Ms. Ashay is cited with accused of 2 counts of simple battery from October 1st, 2024. Ms. Babington, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Sarah Rosenhoover. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
2024 suspended license. State, you got the South Carolina history?
I'm showing a 2017 assault and battery arrest it's called a non-conviction. I don't know if that's a NOLO or a dismissal.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Daciano, what's the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor, the state's requesting an SOB through pretrial level 2, no contact, stay away, anger awareness, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. That's based on an incident that happened on October 1st. Officers responded to the Chelsea apartment complex, 2135 Godby Road. The victim is Shydrina Wiley. She reported the defendant showed up to her apartment with a woman named Eterica Hurst. The victim has a TPO against Ms. Hurst. Ms. Hurst was also charged in connection with this for violating that TPO. Ms. Hurst was driving. The defendant was the passenger. The victim was getting into her car with her children. The defendant got out of the vehicle and punched her in the face and snatched her wig. The parties then began to tussle until the defendant eventually fled the scene with Ms. Hurst. The victim had no visible injuries. However, the victim's cousins were present and corroborated the victim's story about what happened. We've been in touch with her today. She states she doesn't know the defendant very well. She wants no contact and stay away.
Okay.
And if you can stop for the victim.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. I do see a Shydrina Wiley. Ms. Wiley, you need to unmute and start your video if you want to contribute to the proceedings. Ms. Rosenhoover, any objection to the stay away and no contact?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
All right. On each count is going to be $1,500. It's going to be a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. No further contact with Shydrina Wiley. You have to stay 200 yards away from her, not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. No illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. Thank you.
Yeah. What level was that?
Level 1. All right, can we have Mr. Mark Jackson present, and maybe have what's the gentleman's name? Seth Weldon.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Weldon's accusation number is 24 CR 0079898, accused of 2 counts of battery family violence from December 4th, 2024. Mr. Weldon, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Jackson, who's appeared via Zoom. Mr. Howard, any priors?
4th arrest. Last was 2013 probation.
Ms. Allen, what's the state's position?
Your Honor, we're requesting a $4,000 SOB through pretrial, no violent contact, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and we're requesting family violence intervention programming. This is an incident from the 4th of December at about 11 p.m. Police were called to 345 Far Road Northeast. That's a Chevron gas station, I believe. They were actually flagged down They encountered a vehicle with Florida tags. They encountered the defendant and his live-in girlfriend, I believe. Her name is Mrs. Fox, Foxx. First name is Chava, as I would say it, Chavah. She spoke to police there at the Chevron gas station or nearby, reported that she and the defendant had gone out to eat. They'd argued in the car. They continued arguing. He struck her repeatedly while she was in the vehicle. She was in the passenger seat. She had a laceration to her lip when she spoke to police. She said the defendant striking her caused that. They went to the Chevron gas station, and there were multiple witnesses who saw him drag her out of the vehicle. She had visible scrapes and bruising on her knee and legs. These were also seen by police. People at the gas station asked if she needed help. She reported that she was back in the vehicle and they were driving when she saw police, and she flagged police down. The defendant said he was being struck as well. He had no injuries. They lived together. He realized he had hit her in the face. He said it was unintentional. We've spoken to the victim today, Mrs. Fox. She says that they are in a relationship. She wants no violent contact. She says this is not the first time that the defendant has been angry or had an issue, that she's got concerns about his anger issues, and she did corroborate the information in the warrants, Your Honor. If you would sound for Ms. Fox. Thank you.
Chava Fox, if you're present, please unmute and start your video. Mr. Jackson, any objection to the domestic violence intervention program?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. On the each count of battery family violence, it's going to be $2,000. It's a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial services. No violent contact with Chava Fox. There is no stay away provision at the present time. Within 30 days of being released, Mr. Weldon will enroll and attend a domestic violence intervention program at his expense. He must show proof of enrollment to his pretrial officer by the second visit. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. Thank you.
What's that level?
Thank
Level
you,
one.
Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, next case, Deputy.
Please
Your Honor,
vote.
I think we've got a couple of other private counsel here, if it's possible.
Let's
to
see.
take those.
Jillian Lee DePriest. Is Mr. Priest present? It's position 2. How convenient. All right, next
Hi,
up.
Judge.
Hello. All right, Ms. Jillian DePriest is accused of 2 counts of simple battery family violence from December 5th, 2024, case number 24 CR 007976Y. Mr. Priest, you've been accused of these 2 misdemeanor offenses. You've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Justin Spisman. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
No.
Okay. A recommendation, Ms. Daciano?
Yes, Judge, state's recommending a signature bond through pretrial services, no further violent contact with the victims. We're also requesting alcohol and drug screening through pretrial services. We're also requesting an alcohol and drug evaluation and treatment, or if your honor is inclined and would rather a family violence intervention program. However, drinking seems to be the underlying issue here. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol. This incident happened yesterday at 560 Valley Green Drive. Upon arrival, officers made contact with the defendant's husband, Stephen Tuck. He told the police that his wife has a drinking problem, and when she drinks, she becomes aggressive. And on this date, she was drinking, she got aggressive, she pushed him, and then slapped him in the face in front of their child. The officer tried to speak with the defendant. The warrant notes she was visibly intoxicated. The officers were trying to get her to go into a different room and fall asleep and trying to de-escalate the situation. The officer said that initially she appeared to be calmed down, but then she became irate and was refusing orders from the officers. And while in the residence, the party's 4-year-old, initials CT, told the officers that mommy hit me. When the officers asked the husband what the child meant, he said that in the middle of the scuffle, the child was hit unintentionally by the defendant, who was trying to hit the husband instead. This was actually the second time the police have been called to the residence that same day. However, the husband called police and told them when he called the first time that he no longer needed their assistance, and then had to call a second time later. And as the officers were leaving the residence, they were in their vehicle outside. The husband came outside and said the defendant left the room that the officers told her to stay in and had struck him again. And we've been in touch with Mr. Tuck. They're married. He wants contact. He does say there's a drinking problem and he would like his wife to get some help with that. So we are asking for the alcohol and drug screening and the ADET, Your Honor. And if you can sound for Mr. Tuck, thank you.
Mr. Steven Tuck, if you'd like to contribute to the proceedings?
Judge,
Yes,
he
I'm
should be
here.
on. He's under JD, Your Honor. Mr. Tuck, please turn on your video.
I'm trying right now.
You're good. It was on earlier. And Judge, that is all act.
Mr. Spisman?
Yes, I'm here.
All
Your
right,
Honor.
thank you, Mr. Tuck. Mr. Spisman, what's the defense position on a ADT or a DVIP?
Judge, we have no opposition to a evaluation. And we also think that the DVIP is not a bad idea. It may be a precursor to trying to resolve this anyways. My position is, Your Honor, it's related to pretrial services. It's probably not necessary in this particular case. She has absolutely no criminal history whatsoever. In talking to Mr. Tuck, who retained my services for his wife, he did indicate that he does want her to come home, that they're going to work through this, that much of this behavior is fueled by an underlying addiction issue, which she is indicating that she does want to help and she wants to do better. So
Okay.
she's willing to concede that.
All right, Mr. Tuck, I appreciate you being here, but there's nothing else to state at the present time. On each count of simple battery is going to be 1,500. That's going to be a 3,000 signature bond through pretrial services level 1. Pretrial can either require her to appear in person or she can do it through email or telephonically, but I'll let pretrial dictate that contact. Within 7 days of being released, she shall enroll and undertake an alcohol and drug evaluation and submit herself to any treatment that's required. Also, within 30 days of being released, she will enroll and complete a domestic violence intervention program. She will report to pretrial once a month to indicate her progress with her evaluations and treatment, as well as her classes. No further violent contact with Steven Tuck and CT, and she may return to the family home. No illegal drugs, no alcoholic beverages, and no weapons and no firearms. A pretrial is authorized to require random screens for illegal drugs and alcohol.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Priest, you're going to fill out some paperwork with pretrial services and they're going to process you out, okay?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tuck. You're free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge. Take care.
Thank you. Position 3, John Hunt.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Ben Sessions for Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Sessions, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. This is State versus John Hunt, case 24CR 007977G. Mr. Hunt is accused of simple battery family violence from December 4th, 2024. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
No priors.
Okay.
For Hunt, I got 10 total. State, you got 10 arrests?
No, I have first arrest.
Okay.
He has no prior history, Your Honor.
All right.
All right. Ms. Desiano?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident happened yesterday at 4050 Falls Ridge Drive in Johns Creek. The defendant is accused of throwing an alcoholic beverage in his daughter's face. We're requesting a signature bond through pretrial. We haven't been in touch with Ms. Hunt, the victim, Sarah Hunt, today. However, I do see she's on the Zoom. So if she's okay with contact, then we're okay with no further violent contact. If she's not okay, then of course, no contact, stay away. Anger awareness, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol, Your Honor. Thank you.
Sarah Hunt, if you'd like to contribute to the proceedings now, okay. Did you want to say anything? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
What would you like to tell us?
My dad just got upset and he didn't throw the drink technically at me. He threw it at the wall. And he has never done anything like that before. And I was intoxicated. So we just got in a small argument and he just ended up grabbing the drink and throwing it at the wall.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hunt. Please mute your screen. You can close your video as well. Ms. Desiano, I'm going to do a $1,000 signature bond through the jail. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, well, no weapons. And next court date will be summoned, sent to Mr. Hunt's address. Any questions,
Thank you.
Mr. Sessions?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Desiano, we good?
Yes, Judge.
Your Honor, may I be excused today?
Yes, Mr. Sessions, thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Yes, ma'am.
You said just $1,000.
That's a $1,000 signature bond through the jail, no violent contact with Sarah Hunt. No illegal drugs and no weapons. Thank you. Position, next one, is it 4, Deputy?
5037.
Who's the counsel for position 4?
It's, I don't see any other private counsel on screen.
I'm handling position number 4, Judge, so that's a public defender case.
Okay,
Okay, ACDC just joined. If you could just read them their rights.
all right,
Okay, can you see a date on
Francois?
Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon. Okay, were they present when, well, let me just go ahead. To the 2 individuals at ACDC, my name is Judge Law. These are brand new cases that have been brought against you based upon your recent arrest. Your cases have been formally accused. Please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, a public defense counsel will be representing you. Okay, shall I start with ACDC then? Whoever you'd like to bring forward, Francois?
Position number 11, Ms. Outlaw.
This is Faith Outlaw, accused of battery against a female who is pregnant from July 22nd, 2024. Accusation 24 CR 7988E. Ms. Outlaw, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Rosenhuber. Okay. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
No.
All right, first
Yeah,
arrest,
18. Yep.
18 years old. All right. Ms. Desiano?
Yes, Your Honor, this incident happened back in July 22nd. Officers responded to the Metro Point Lofts, 800 West Marietta Street. The victim is Nevaeh Andrews. She advised she was attacked by her ex-girlfriend. She and her ex-girlfriend, the defendant, and a man named Randarius Jackson were at one time in a polyamorous type situation, a throuple, if you will. Mr. Jackson impregnated the victim. She did not feel like the relationship was working out and she broke things off. On the incident date, the defendant approached her while she was walking up the stairs of her apartment. The defendant punched her several times all over her body. The officer observed redness on her face. The victim also complained of pain in her head and her torso and her stomach. And because she was pregnant, of course, she was taken to the hospital to make sure baby was okay. The state's requesting a signature bond through pretrial services, no contact, stay away, anger awareness, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Miss Nevaeh Andrews, if you are present, you can, I don't think I see anyone by that name.
Oh, it's Harmony. It's Harmony.
All right, Miss Harmony Andrews, if you'd like to, if you want to contribute, you can start your video. Otherwise, I'm moving on.
Yes, this is all true. I'm sorry, I'm having some complications right now. Can you hear me?
I have to see you as well. Okay. Please unmute.
Can you see and hear me now?
Yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge.
Yes.
Did you agree with the assessment by Ms. Desiano, the prosecutor,
Agree with the assessment?
with what she just indicated to the court?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No.
Okay. And do you still occupy 800 West Marietta?
No.
Are you no longer at that location?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Haddad, any objection to the no contact?
Judge, this is my case and we
Oh, I'm
don't have
sorry,
any
I'm sorry. Ms. Rosenhuber, sorry about
Okay.
that.
No problem. We
Okay.
don't have any objection to the no contact, and I believe if she does require a parental co-signer, I have the name and number, and it looks like Miss Bianca Outlaw is on the Zoom as well.
All right, that makes it even easier. Okay. The bond is going to be 2,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services. This is going to be level 1. No further contact with Harmony Andrews, which means that Miss Outlaw will have to stay 200 yards away from Miss Andrews. Do not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. The bond will be co-signed by her mother, Bianca Outlaw. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. And Miss Outlaw, Miss Faith Outlaw, within 30 days of being released, I'll need you to show proof of enrollment into a qualified domestic violence intervention program. This is a series of 26 weekly classes. You will have to attend each class with no skipping. And once you've completed the classes, you'll need to show proof of completion to your pretrial officer. Thank you.
Your Honor, we're Ms. Rosenhuber, we're trying to give you a call in courtroom 2. And if we can go to position number 14, Ms. Rosenfield.
Okay.
Roundsville.
This is Dana Rounseville, accused of simple battery from November 30th, 2023. Case number is 24 CR 7975J. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Jawan Haddad. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
22. I got
22?
2 warrants. Yeah, 22. 2 warrants out of Whitfield County. 2024 FTA, 2023 shoplifting conviction, 2018 and 15 FTA, 2013 shoplifting trespass conviction. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident that occurred last year on the 30th of November at 1645 Moreland Avenue Southwest. The victim is Heather Prillaman. That's Prillaman. She reported and met with police there at the location. The defendant, who is known to her, she'd known for about a year, struck her in the eye with a closed fist. She was there with her 4-year-old child at the time. So there's been a warrant that's been active since November of last year. Based on the significant history, Your Honor, that includes felony convictions, we're asking for a $2,000 surety, no contact with Mrs. Prillaman, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons. We haven't been able to get her on the phone yet today. We'll continue those efforts.
All right. Thank you.
And there was a cruelty in the 3rd degree charge that came in with this, but you can't commit cruelty in the 3rd degree without domestic violence being involved.
So you've already NOD'd the charge?
I did.
All right, thank you. Mr. Haddad?
Yeah, and on behalf of my client, she is 55 years of age, Judge. She is from Georgia, self-employed, in landscaping, Judge. Judge, the parties have not really had seen each other, have had any contact. This occurred last year. I understand her past, Judge. Nonetheless, I would ask the court to consider perhaps a release through pretrial services, Judge.
All right, thank you. I noticed that she's got 2 holds. She's got a recent FTA. She doesn't qualify for a signature bond through pretrial. Her bond's going to be set at $1,000. It's going to be a surety bond. No further contact with Heather Prillaman. and to stay away from the 1645 Moreland Avenue location. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. The next court date will be, Mr. Jordan?
December 19th, Judge.
Okay, her next court date will be December 19th. If she makes bond, make sure she can only be released to her current holds. Either one will have to come pick her up. Thank you.
Number 17, Thornton.
That's my case, Judge.
All right.
17 and 18.
And is Courtney Thornton the lady at ACDC?
That is correct, Judge.
Okay. This is state. Thank you. This is state versus Courtney Thornton. She's got two separate cases before us today. 24 CR 7990C, false report of a crime from October 3rd, 2024. And the second case is 24 CR 7991C, criminal trespass causing damage to property from the same date. Ms. Thornton, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Haddad. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
11. 2024 simple battery contributing to delinquency of a minor. Disorderly conduct out of Clayton County. 2021 disorderly conduct conviction. 2020 disorderly conduct conviction. They were ag assaults. One of them was, I think, an ag. They got reduced to disorderly conduct. One of those arrests. 2018 disorderly conduct conviction. 2017 theft by receiving, disorderly conduct, theft of lost, mislaid property, NOLO. That's
good.
it.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. So these are two different incidences that occurred on the same day. They're somewhat related. The first incident is actually position 18, criminal trespass and damage to property, just chronologically. At about 2 in the morning at 1483 Arthur Langford Jr. Place, Southwest, a phone call was made about damage to property. Police responded to the scene. They met with Tramicia Evans as well as Mr. Lamar Mapp. The location is where Lamar Mapp lives. They reported that the defendant had been banging and knocking on the door and then broke the window of the residence. When the young lady, Mrs. Evans, who was there, opened the door, the defendant rushed inside and there was an altercation. The defendant then fled the scene. She'd been driven there by a third party. Police saw the damage. They also saw that the defendant just happened to drop her purse and her ID was present in her purse there on the scene. So the officer that responded did a warrant and created a police report. Shortly thereafter, different police were called to the same location. They met with the defendant who reported that she'd been assaulted by Mr. Mapp there at the location. She said that he'd contacted her while she was out that evening and asked her to meet him there, that she went there and he assaulted her because he was jealous, saying that he dragged her outside. Police spoke to Mr. Mapp. He said that it was actually the other way around, that she'd been calling him. He then blocked her. She showed up at the location. She smashed the window. And then when she pushed her way inside the house, there was a physical altercation with the other woman there at the home. It appears to be a lover's triangle. There are multiple witnesses there. The individual, Mrs. Evans, I think she's on our Zoom. She engaged in an altercation with this young lady. And the woman who actually drove her to the location, this defendant, reported that she'd been at the bar, at the club with the defendant. When the defendant decided she was going to call this gentleman, Mr. Mapp, she started to get really irate and talk about how she wanted to go over to his house. She requested a ride to that location. The witness gave the defendant a ride to that location and reported that she said in the car, "I bet he's going to choose me when I get there." She watched the defendant get out of the vehicle. She said she wasn't even able to stop the vehicle before the defendant jumped out of the vehicle, rush up to the windows and the doors, start banging, and then break the window. She saw the defendant push her way inside, and then an altercation happened that moved outside of the location. The witness also reported that the defendant fled and got back into her car, and that's how she left the scene. And in the car, the defendant said to this witness, "I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have gone over there," and then told her she was going to call the police and file a false report against the gentleman there. That is the issue between these two women, which she then in fact did. So police were called. She made this police report, and it was discovered that she was falsely reporting an assault. She'd in fact reached out and gone over to that location and damaged the property there. There is a significant concern, Your Honor, in this case. When I look at just the information in Fulton County system related to 2018 forward, there are at least 4 different cases that all 3 of them came in as aggravated assault charges, and the defendant was allowed to plead down to disorderly in 3 of them, excuse me, with 3 different victims in cases, and she was ordered to undergo and continue mental health treatment and relinquish all firearms. That was in a disposition January 2023. There is a concern that the state has for stability and mental health, and we'd be requesting an evaluation. The case numbers that were concurrently sentenced in January of 2023 are 21 SC 178318 and 21 SC 179537. She had just had an aggravated assault and battery in 2019 that was dead docketed after she completed PTI. The victim in that case was Eric Dixon. And then in 2018, a simple battery, family violence, and disorderly. She was allowed to plead a disorderly. The victim in that case was Chloe Thornton. That was the first 2 cases. These last 2 cases both involve a woman named Shanna Day Clark and require her to continue treatment through Kirkwood Mental Health. So there's a concern here. We're asking for a $2,000 surety, one on each of the cases, Your Honor, so $2,000 total. Absolutely no contact with Mrs. Evans and Mr. Mapp, Lamar Mapp. Stay away from that location, 1483 Arthur Langford Jr. Place Southwest, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Your Honor, on behalf of my client, she's reports to me she's 30 years of age. She has 3 kids. She did mention that she had been working at UPS for the last 3 months. She is indigent, Judge. I would just ask for, in light of her criminal history, I understand pretrial may not be an option. But if it is, of course, I would request it. Otherwise, Judge, I would just ask a $1,000 total bond on both cases in light of her indigency, Judge.
On the false report of crime, position 17, it's going to be a $500 signature bond through the jail. And on position 18, with regards to the criminal trespass causing damage to property, it's going to be a $1,500 surety bond. No further contact with Tremesia Evans. No further contact with Lamar Mapp. She's to stay away 200 yards away from 1483 Arthur Langford Jr. Drive, I think, Southwest Atlanta, that entire apartment complex. Within 7 days of being released on bond, she must comply with all the conditions of her sentence from her 2 outstanding felony convictions in those felony cases. Thank you. Oh, her
What was
next
that
court
first
date,
bond amount?
500 signature bond through the jail. And the second one is 1,500 surety. The next court date is December 19. Thank you.
I can't say nothing.
Ms. Evans, what would you like to say?
Yes, I was trying to see, okay,
Well, one moment, Your Honor. Miss Evans also has an outstanding warrant for her participation in that assault. And so with all due respect, we would caution any statements at this point.
Ms. Evans, if you want to unmute your video. So Ms.
Yes.
Evans, you are free to say whatever you want, and I can place you under oath. but the prosecutor has notified the court that there is an outstanding warrant for your arrest. So if you choose to say anything and waive your right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to see. What do I have a warrant for? When I
Well,
already
when you show up at the Fulton County Jail, you'll get all the information.
But I'm saying
Please,
saying
please surrender yourself to the Fulton County Jail by 5 p.m. today.
by 5 p.m. today.
Correct.
I'm saying though,
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go.
I'm not understanding this because
Remove her
I
from
have
the
a
Zoom,
warrant
please,
on
Mr.
her.
Jordan. Thank you.
You say what?
Please remove her from the Zoom. Thank you. All right. Francois, I think we are done with ACDC.
Yes, we're completed, Judge. Thank you. Also, just to confirm, Kanetta Pop, her charge was dismissed, NOD.
Kanetta Pop. Okay.
Yes, that was a duplicate. She's already got an open case. I believe she was arrested for a felony, and
Yes,
that's
that is correct.
Yeah. So she'll be on our
Okay.
SAP, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Oh,
Thank
Yes,
you,
we
Judge.
put that case
Thank
on the 12-17 calendar.
Courtroom 2, who do we have?
We have position number 5 and 6, Mr. Lyons.
This is State versus Yoram Navon Lyons, accused of battery, family violence, and cruelty to children in the 3rd degree from December 3rd, 2024. So Lyons, you have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Rosenhuber. Any priors, Mr.
6,
Howard?
on probation, obstruction, 2 counts. They didn't put the case number. All right, also on probation for battery DV as of May of this year and terroristic threats. 23 SC 191355. 2024 probation, 2023 FTA. 2022 obstruction NOLO and has a probation hold.
Thank you. Ms. Desiano?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll start with the battery case that happened on December 3rd. Incident location is 8601 Roberts Drive. The victim in this case is Ashley Cameron. She and the defendant share a child together. She reported that the defendant struck her multiple times in the head with a children's toy basket. The officer observed the victim had a laceration on her head, blood stains on the wall, and blood on the toy basket that was used to hit her with. The party's son, who's a 2-year-old, initial ZL, was present for this altercation. 2 days later, the officers responded to another domestic dispute at this location. The warrant doesn't detail any details of that dispute and what was reported, but while on scene, the officers did notify the defendant that he had a warrant out for his arrest from the incident that happened 2 days prior to that. And he resisted arrest, so he was charged with obstruction in that case. The first offender, he's on probation as pretrial stated in the 23 SC case. That's a first offender plea, which is the only reason this case is not a felony, Your Honor. It was against the same victim, Ms. Cameron. He was ordered to have no further violent contact with her as a condition of probation. He struck her repeatedly. She had multiple injuries all over her body in that case. We've been in touch with her today. She states that there was an argument on the 3rd about him sleeping on the couch. She wanted to go to bed and she wanted him to sleep on the couch, which led to him repeatedly striking her with the basket. She states that he lays around, doesn't have a job, doesn't help with their child, does nothing. They were arguing over that as well. She wants no contact, and he'll need a one-time law enforcement escort to retrieve his belongings. And Your Honor, based on this being a case with the same victim, a multiple offense, and he's on probation, we're asking for a $3,000 cash bond in his battery case. No contact with the victim or their child, family violence intervention, although he should already be in the process of completing this as a part of his first offender probation. Stay away from the incident location, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And on the obstruction matter, Your Honor, we're asking for a 1,000 surety. And if you can sound for Miss Cameron, thank you.
All right, and the incident location's Roberts Drive, or is it another different address?
I wrote down 86101 Roberts Drive, but let me double check.
Miss Ashley Cameron, if you're on Zoom, you're free to unmute and start your video if you want to contribute. Okay, Miss Rosenhuber?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Lyons is 28 years old, a lifelong Georgia resident. He does have his high school diploma and he is self-employed. Judge, I did speak with Mr. Lyons, noticing that his address on file is the incident location, about where else he could live. He advised that his biological mother does reside here in Georgia, and he would be able to stay with her upon release. The state's correct that he is currently on probation, and it looks like he does have a probation hold. Judge, given that he would in no way be able to afford a $3,000 cash bond, we would ask for a more reasonable bond, given the fact that he's already going to be held in on something else. So, Judge, we'd ask for a reasonable bond to be set. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Lyons, I don't know if I mentioned, but you do have a willful obstruction charge as well from December 5th. Case number 24CR 7981B. For the willful obstruction, your bond is going to be a $1,000 surety bond. And your next court date for that case is December 19th. For the battery, family violence, and the cruelty, your bond is as follows. On the battery, family violence is $1,000. On the cruelty is $500. That's a $1,500 cash bond only. No further contact with Ashley Cameron, and to stay 200 yards away from 8601 Roberts Drive. You are allowed, once you are released on bond, you are allowed a one-time visit with a police officer to 8601 to remove your personal property. For the present time, your next court date for both cases is going to be December 19th. Thank you.
Next, we go to position number 7, Ms. McCowan.
This is Kiera McCowan, 24CR 007982J, accused of false report of a crime from December 4th, 2024. Ms. McCowan, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Rosenhuber. Any priors?
Third, 2023, suspended registration, driving without a valid license, fleeing an officer, possession of marijuana, Clayton County, and a battery PTI. I forgot what year it was.
Okay. Ms. Vesiano?
Yes, Your Honor, in full candor, we don't have a ton of information on this one yet. Just she filed a report with police on December 4th, claiming that she had a TPO against her ex-boyfriend, Jangiris Porter, and she told police that he barged into her house unannounced and refused to leave. And the police at some point determined that that was a false report. We're requesting an SOB. Thank you.
Bond is set at $1,000. It's a signature bond through the jail. And Ms. McCowan, please maintain a current address with the courts, and we will send you notice for your next court date. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go to add-on position number 1.
Was that Claytus Ochu?
Yes.
That'll be my case, Judge.
All right, Mr. Haddad. This is State versus Claytus Ochu, 24CR 007992A. Mr. Ochu has been accused of simple assault, criminal trespass, family violence, and simple battery, family violence from December 5th, 2024. Mr. Ochu, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Haddad. Any priors?
Ochu, I got first.
Okay.
That's my case, Your Honor.
Charlotte?
This is an incident from December the 5th. At about 11:45 p.m. in Johns Creek, police were called to 7825 Laurel Crest Drive. There they met with the victim. Her name is Kelly Ochu. She is the ex-wife of the defendant, but they continue to live together there at the location. She reported that the defendant became angry with her, accused her of speaking with another man on her phone. She ran from him as he was being aggressive and demanding her phone, and locked herself into their bathroom. He broke the door down and entered that bathroom and then grabbed her and struggled with her over that phone, which he took from her possession. The defendant was still present when police came to the scene, and he admitted that he broke down the door, physically struggled, and took that phone out of the hands of his ex-wife forcefully. Mrs. Kelly Ochu reported that she was afraid, and that's why she called the police. She was concerned he was going to assault her when she fled into the bathroom, when he broke down the door, when he physically put his hands on her and fought with her, and then removed her phone from her hands. They do have 2 children, Your Honor. We spoke with Mrs. Ochu today. This is the defendant's first arrest, Your Honor. But based on the facts, we're going to be asking for a $3,000 SOB through pretrial, a stay away from the location there at 7825 Laurel Crest Drive. No contact with Ms. Ochu or the children unless there's some kind of a superior court order related to visitation. And FVIP. He would also need a one-time escort, or DVIP, I'm sorry. We would request that DVIP be ordered at this point.
All right.
I
Mr.
do not believe Miss Kelly Ochu is on the Zoom, but if you'd sound for her, thank you.
Ms. Kelly Ochu, if you want to address the court, please unmute and start your video. Okay, Mr. Haddad, any comment about the stay away and no contact and the
Your Honor, no objection to the stay away, no contact. We discussed this. He's got a place to stay. I would just ask a one trip back with the assistance of law enforcement to retrieve some of his personal belongings. The only request I have, Judge, is in lieu of the DVIP, I would ask perhaps a one-day anger management for the time being. Obviously, after conviction, that's a different issue, but at this point, I would just ask a less intrusive, less costly or alternative, Judge.
all right. On the simple assault, criminal trespass, and simple battery, it's going to be $1,000 each. It's a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. No further contact with Kelly Ochu. He's to stay 200 yards away from Mrs. Ochu and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner, including in person, indirect contact, mail, email, phone, and even on social media. I'll allow for a third-party transfer of any child or children that he shares with Mrs. Ochu, which means that a third party must be obtained in order to facilitate transfer of any contact with the child. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. And Mr. Ochu, you'll need to update the court of your new address within 30 days of being released from court. Also within 30 days, I'll need you to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. And you will show proof of enrollment by your second visit with pretrial services. Please attend all 26 classes at your expense and do not skip any classes. Thank you. Oh, and he's allowed a one-time visit, I'm sorry, with a police officer to retrieve his belongings. I'm sorry, Deputy, who do you have next?
Position 12, Mr. Perry.
This is State versus Ricky Perry, accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property and loitering and prowling from October 23rd, 2024. Accusation 24 CR 7987G. Mr. Perry, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Ms. Rosen Hoover. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
23 on probation, reckless conduct, terroristic threats. It's 22 SC 182655. I also appeared to be on probation in DeKalb County for burglary. 2018, they gave him 5 to serve, 5 probation. 2022, possession of a firearm by convicted felon. Reckless conduct conviction, couple of probations from 2020. 2019, trespass, obstruction, NOLO. 2018, ag assault, criminal damage to property, 2nd degree conviction.
That's good. Thank you. Ms. Allen, or Ms. Desiano, excuse me.
Yes, Judge, this incident happened October 24th. Officers responded to a call from another person about a suspicious person at the residence at 360 Clark Crossing. By the time the police arrived, the male had fled the scene. And so the officers began canvassing the area. And while they were canvassing the area, they happened upon a local business called the Rejuvenate Body Spa, 6780 Roswell Road, that had the glass door that was shattered. The officer left his business card for the business owner to find the following day. She did call him while the officer was inquiring about if a business owner whose name is Juan Wang knew anyone that would want to destroy the property of her business. She states that she was having a dispute with another business owner and she felt like it was possibly him who was responsible. The other business owner is the defendant before you. The officer spoke to the defendant initially. He denied having any knowledge of any of it. And then the victim described kind of what the dispute was. Basically, the defendant owns a moving company and he had moved about all of her property. She hired him and he damaged about $4,000 of her property allegedly. So she went on Google and made a negative Google review detailing her experience. The defendant was very upset at the negative Google review and disputed it with Google, and Google was in touch with the victim, confirmed that she was a legitimate client of his, and Google basically said, we're not removing the review. This was all the day before this incident happened. And at that point, the defendant allegedly went and made a negative Google review on the victim's business at the body spa, saying it was infested with roaches, things of that nature. He also called her very late at night. This incident happened around midnight. He started calling her around midnight the previous day. So at that point, the police did get warrants for the defendant's cell phone data and did flock his vehicle. The flock cameras put his vehicle in about 5 miles within the location. And then the cell phone data pinged within half a mile of the business at the time this allegedly occurred around midnight. So based on the motive and the flock cameras and the cell phone data, he was charged with damaging her property. We're requesting a $2,000 surety, Your Honor, given his criminal history. No contact with the victim, Juan, Huan, Wang, Wang. Stay away from the Rejuvenate Body Spa. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And if Your Honor can sound for Ms. Wang, thank you.
So, Ms. Juan Wang, if you'd like to address the court, please unmute and start your video. All right, Ms. Rosenhoover.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Perry is 37 years old. He is a lifelong Georgia resident. The address on file is his current address. His entire family also resides here in Georgia. He graduated high school and does own his own moving company. Judge, I would note that his bond is currently set at a $1,200 surety. He's requesting a signature bond through pretrial on this case, but if the court is not willing to do that, we would at least ask the court not to raise his bond. Thank you.
The criminal trespass is going to be $1,000. The prowling is $200. Total bond is $1,200 surety. No further contact with Juan Wang. To stay 200 yards away from Rejuvenate Body Spa at this location, which was
6780 Roswell Road, Your Honor.
6780 Roswell Road in Sandy Springs. And no illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. Next court date is going to be December 19th. Thank you.
So, hey, how you doing? Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I have a bond that said 1,200. You said it at 1,200. I think I already bonded out already. How does that work?
Have you already paid the bond?
Yeah, it should be paid. I'm going to go check on it today.
Who paid it?
My friend, Cedric Davis.
If you've already bonded out, then that would be the situation. But the bond order also requires you to stay away from the location and the victim. And we'll see you in court on December 19th if you haven't been released. But if you have been released, then just make sure that you maintain a current address and you will not have to come back to court on December 19th.
Okay, so the question is the bond amount the same thing? Because that's basically what you said, $1,200, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'll just make sure I can make the bond out, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Next, we will go to add-on number 2, Ms. Williams,
That'd be
This
my
is-
case, Judge.
All right, Mr. This is State versus Lysandra Williams, 24 CR 007993E. Ms. Williams is accused of theft by shoplifting from September 13th, 2024. Ms. Williams, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. Haddad. Any priors?
I saw a second arrest, 2019 Secret Service fraud conviction. I don't know if state got something different. That's what I heard.
No, that's what I have as well.
Right.
Felony fraud conviction from 2019.
And what's the state's recommendation for this charge?
So this was a ongoing incident at Kroger between September the 13th and the 19th. While the defendant was employed there, she worked in concert with someone else as a cashier. Her EBT card and a verification for loyalty card at Kroger she was using while she was a cashier had been used multiple times during that time period to take $266.65 worth of household items from the location. She worked in concert with someone who came through. She scanned some items, other items she falsely voided, and then put those items into the person's cart and bags, so they left without paying. A co-defendant was identified and they admitted their part. Police spoke to Mrs. Williams and asked her to turn herself in, and warrants were taken out, Your Honor. We're asking for $1,000 surety, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and to stay away from the location. This is the Kroger at 8465 Holcomb Bridge Road in Johns Creek.
Any objection to the stay away, Mr. Haddad?
Judge, no objection to the stay away. I would just ask, I'm sorry.
I was going to do a $2,000 signature bond
Thank you, Judge.
through pretrial services, level 1. Ms. Williams, presently, I'm going to grant you a signature bond through pretrial services. You'll be required to report to pretrial once a month, and you're required to stay away from the Kroger store at 8465, or is it Holcomb Bridge Road in Johns Creek? If you get arrested again, if you fail to report to pretrial or if you fail to report to court when summoned, this signature bond will be vacated or set aside and amended to either a cash bond or a surety bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
next we go to position number 8, Ms. Marcia.
This is Christy D. How do you pronounce your last name? Marcia?
I believe that's correct, Judge, or Mosia.
Okay. Ms. Marcia is accused of simple battery family violence from December 5th, 2024, under accusation 24 CR 7984F. Ms. Marcia, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Ms. Rosenhuber. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Third, 2015 trespass obstruction, 2015 DUI.
Ms. Daciano, what's the recommendation?
United States requesting a signature bond through pretrial, no further contact, stay away, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. This incident happened yesterday. The incident location is 3577 Cantrell Road in Atlanta. The defendant lives with her ex-boyfriend. They've lived together for a very long time. The victim reports they have not been in a relationship for quite some time, though. In any event, there was an argument over some purses the defendant brought home to donate. She accused him of being in a relationship. There was an argument. She aggressively poked him 3 times. The victim was adamant that he wanted to press charges, and we've been in touch with it today. He has the same opinion. He states that they've been having issues for a long time. He wants no contact and wants her to stay away.
Is Ernest Epps on the Zoom? Please unmute and start your video. Which one is Mr. Epps?
I'm the fat one.
You're the what?
Can you hear me,
Yes.
Your Honor?
Yes, I see a name Pat on it, so I just want to be sure. What's your name?
I go by Pat.
Okay.
I found
Epps, please raise your right hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you wish to have contact with Ms. Mosia?
As a condition of bond, I wish to have no contact with the defendant.
Okay. And do you still occupy the 377 Cantrell Road?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
The other thing is that her daughter threatened to kill me as well.
All right. How old is the daughter?
The daughter is 27 years old.
All right. You would need to call the authorities in order to explore whether this is a cause of action. But in the meantime, I'm just dealing with Ms. Mosia.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Rosenhuber, I'm going to set the bond at $1,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. She's to have no further contact with Ernest Epps and stay away from 377 Cantrell Road. She can go to the location one time only with a police officer to remove her belongings. And then after that, she will need to update the court with her new mailing address within 30 days of being released. She's to attend and complete a one-day anger awareness program. And her next court date will be mailed to her new address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. The only other thing, if I may, she has resided at that address for the past 18 years. A one-time police escort might not be enough time for her to retrieve all of her belongings. So as long as she goes back with police and with Mr. Epps' permission, may she return more than once if needed to get the rest of her belongings. I just don't want the bond order to prevent her from obtaining the things that she has there.
All right. Mr. Epps, would you permit the defendant to be there for one day with a moving service or a moving company to remove her belongings?
No objection, Your Honor.
Ms. Mosia, you may go to the location between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You must make sure that you have a police escort and that you have hired a moving company or a moving service with movers to remove your belongings from the Cantrell Road location. If there are any items where the ownership is in dispute, such as a table or a chair or a living room set, you cannot remove those items. Anything that is in dispute, you have to leave them behind, and that will be a subject of a civil suit. Thank you. All right, Mr. Pat, you are free to go, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we can go to position number 21, Mr. Wise.
Is there a reason why Harmony Andrews is still on Zoom? All right, folks whose cases have already been handled, you're free to leave the Zoom. So Mr. Epps, Ms. Andrews, I have a Nicole Mosia here. Ms. Mosia, you're free to go. And I'm sorry, who do we have right now?
Position number 21.
Oh, 21.
Your Honor, I spoke to him, since this private attorney is not here, I'm gonna just handle it.
Okay, this is State versus Jabari Weiss, a case number 24CR 7969C. Mr. Weiss is accused of willful obstruction of an officer, driving without a valid license, and failure to obey a traffic control device. You've been advised of your rights, and Mr. Haddad is presently going to be representing you at first appearance. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
6. On probation, not a cop. 2 counts of entering auto. On probation, not a Forsyth. They got 36 counts of entering auto. 2 counts of burglary. 3 counts of theft by taking. He went to felony yesterday and got a bunch of 10% bond.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from November the 24th, this year, 2024, at about 7:40 p.m. in the area of the Centennial Olympic Park. A traffic stop was initiated when the defendant driving a vehicle failed to or turned right on red where it was prohibited in their signs. He was turning right from Centennial Olympic onto Baker. Officers initiated a traffic stop, and after he'd already provided his name and date of birth, and they discovered he had no driver's license, the defendant fled on foot. He was driving the vehicle. He disregarded the verbal commands to stop and stay on the scene. So he's charged with that one count of obstruction. The defendant, I believe, has a $28,000 bond out of felony court yesterday. Very similar facts, except he was found to be in possession of a firearm when he was driving a vehicle, and then he switched seats with someone. Based on the history, Your Honor, and the facts of this case, we're asking for a $3,000 surety, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and no driving without a license and appropriate registration, etc. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Haddad?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I can find the unmute button. Judge, it appears that as of right now, he's got a $2,200 bond. When I spoke to him briefly earlier, Judge, he's 22 years of age. He's currently unemployed. Obviously, he's going to have to post, if he's able to bond out, he's going to have to post the felony bond amount as well. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to bond out, but I would just ask the court to either keep the bond the way it is at 2,200 under the circumstances. I'm pre-trial, I'm not sure, but I would just ask the court to keep it lower than the state's request, Judge.
Okay, it's $1,000 on each count. That's a $3,000 surety. No driving unless he has a valid driver's license, adequate insurance, and proper registration. This next court date is December 19. And the felony matter is 24 PI 008911. Thank you.
Next, we will go to position number 4, Mr. Johnson.
This is State versus Cleophas Lamar Johnson, accused of simple battery family violence from June 1st, 2023. So Johnson, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Rosenhuber. Your accusation is oh, I already read it. Okay, sorry. Okay, ID prize, please.
7 total. Open fling, 19 SC 169712. 2024 FTA, 2024 felony obstruction, disorderly conduct, arrest. 2020 FTA, 2019 possession of tools. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Tassiano?
Yes, Your Honor, this incident happened June 1st, 2023. The victim in this case is Serena Raming. She reported being assaulted by her child's father at 415 Fairburn Road. DV investigators did an investigation. The victim reported that the defendant was upset with her because she told him that she wanted to move back wherever they're from because she needed more help with their child. The defendant got upset and punched her in the head and body. The victim did not have any visible injuries, and we have not been in touch with her today. But given his open cases, Judge, we are requesting $1,000 surety, no contact, stay away, FEIP, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Does he have a hold?
He does.
In Cobb County? Okay. All right, and Ms. Rosenhuber?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Johnson does have an alternate address that he can stay at. He'll be living with his brother if eventually released. He did earn his high school diploma, and prior to arrest, he had a job working as a chef at Restaurant 10. Judge, he has no problem with the no further contact provision. As the state indicated, this case is about 1.5 years old. And I also want to note that Mr. Johnson, due to other cases not in Fulton, has been continuously in custody since June of this year. Given that and the fact that he does have a hold for Cobb County, we would ask for a signature bond. Thank you.
Bond is set at $1,000 as a surety bond. Next court date is December 19. If he does make bond, he is only to be released to the Cobb County Board. No further contact with Serena. Is it Ramina? Ramin, Rahming, and stay away from 415 Fairburn Road in Southwest Atlanta. He's also required to stay away from the minor child or children that he shares with Ms. Ramin. If he wishes to have any contact with them, he needs to file a separate legitimation action to establish a court order for joint visitation, custody, and child support. Thank you. Next case.
Petition number 9 and 10, Mr. Nardiello.
This is State versus Steve Vincent Nardiello. Petition 9 is 24 CR 7985F, in which he's accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property from June 12th of 2023. The second case is 24 CR 7986F, failure to report striking a fixed object from October 10th, 2024. Mr. Nardiello, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Rosenhuber. Ms. Rosenhuber, I'm sure you've seen all the chat messages from someone on Samsung. I have no idea who that person is. But how many priors, Mr. Howard?
8, 2013 DUI, 2012 battery dismissed. That's it.
The DUI was dismissed as well?
I don't think I saw a disposition for that one.
Okay. Ms. Desiano?
Yes, Your Honor. He has, looks like his DUI was reduced to a reckless driving, and that was a 2014 conviction. He also has, I believe, a prior DUI, but it was from like 1990 something. And as far as the case goes in the chat, I've looked at Odyssey, and from everything that I have access to, I can't see that this case has been resolved before. This looks like it was an outstanding warrant that has not been resolved. So we did accuse it today. I'll just go chronologically, Your Honor. Position 9 happened on June 12th, 2023. Officers responded to 2560 Mountain Road in Milton. The reporting party was the owner of the property there, Jeffrey Atkins. He advised that the defendant was a former contractor that was working with him. He kept coming to the property. He was repeatedly asking him to leave on prior incidents. On the incident date, the defendant came back to his property. He again asked him to leave. There was a bunch of wooden concrete formings up on his property, preparing for a concrete truck to come pour concrete into a specific shape. When he asked him to leave, the victim described the defendant had what he called a meltdown and started destroying all of the concrete formings to the point where the other contractor that was supposed to come pour the concrete could not do so, and they had to postpone everything. And this also happened in front of the victim, and he took photos of the defendant doing this at that time. So for that case, Your Honor, we're requesting an SOB, no contact with the property owner. Actually, his name is Richard Gillette. I'm sorry. The person who called the police was another contractor. The property owner is Richard Gillette. Stay away from the incident location, anger awareness, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And the second case, Your Honor, was originally charged as a hit and run. However, it's not a hit and run. He did strike a tree and leave his vehicle there. When the officers went back to the house of the registered owner of the tag on the vehicle, they did make contact with the son, who told him that they were at a concert and his dad had been drinking, and he did leave the concert alone. And that was basically all he knew. And the defendant did apparently call his son and tell him that cops were probably going to come to the house, and to tell them that he didn't know anything about the vehicle, and that he was staying somewhere else where his son didn't know where. And so for that case, Your Honor, even though this is akin to a DUI, we don't have the evidence to show that. So we're also asking for a signature bond on that case. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
And what was the address for Richard Gillette?
It was 2560 Mountain Road in Milton.
On the Ms. Rosenhuber, any objections to this no contact and stay away?
No objection to that, Judge.
All right. On the criminal trespass causing damage to property, that's going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services. And on the failure to report striking a fixed object, it's going to be a $1,000 signature bond through pretrial services. No contact with Richard Gillette. Stay away from 200 yards away from 2560 Mountain Road in Milton, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. You will report to pretrial once a month, and you'll be subject to random screens for alcohol and or illegal drugs. Your next court date will be sent to your current address.
May I make a comment?
You have a right to remain silent.
Pardon?
I would advise that you don't make a comment, but Judge, I expect he may just want to add that he did resolve this case. And if we were to get documentation that this case was resolved in Milton City Court, Mr. Nardiello, I'll provide that documentation to the state, and hopefully you won't be under obligation of pretrial services. Okay?
That case was resolved. I turned myself into Milton, and the case was heard, and therefore, and I contacted the mayor there and the police chief, and then the captain called me back and said to come up there, sign in, and I did, and that case was heard. And I did receive a probation for it, which I completed. So that case has been heard, and I guess they didn't contact the state to let them know that that case had been heard. And as far as that action, the Gillettes have sold it. The new owners contacted me about doing work on the house for them. And the facts of the matter are, I was the
Mr. Nardiello, we're not going to get into the facts of the case right now. Okay, you got signature bonds on both. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Do not return to that Mountain Road location until this case gets dismissed. Otherwise, you could be back in jail. Thank you.
What level, Your Honor?
Level 1.
And I have a question about his booking sheet.
I'm sorry, Deputy, you had a question about what?
His booking sheet, the charges on his booking sheet, were those NOD'd and converted to the ones that's on the calendar?
So I NOD'd the hit and run, and then the other charge was a failure to maintain lane. I changed that to failure to report striking a fixed object.
Okay. We can go to the next position, which will be.
Who is next, please?
Position 16, Mr. Taylor. Third row. In the third row.
This is Jacoby Dontrell Taylor. Mr. Taylor has got 5 misdemeanor charges, 1 count of battery, family violence, 1 count of simple battery, family violence, and 3 counts of cruelty in the 3rd degree. Accusation number is 24 CR 7983C. Mr. Taylor, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Haddad. Any priors?
It's 3rd, 2020 driving without a valid license, no low. 2013 obstruction, theft by receiving, dismissed.
Thank you.
Your Honor, this is a case from September the 10th, 2024. Police were called to 1903 Drew Drive, apartment 1312, at about 1:30 in the afternoon. There they spoke with Kiara Mason. Her name is spelled Keyarra, Mason, common spelling. She reported that during an argument there where she lives with the defendant and they share children, she asked him to give her the keys back to the location. They argued. He approached her and pushed her forcefully and then punched her in the face multiple times. She was able to block some of those strikes and strike him back. She was seen to have marks around her neck, and all 3 of their children were present, Cornelius, Jacob, and Kanaya. A DV investigator followed up and reviewed the body cam and the visible injuries on the body of this young woman and took out warrants. We tried to get in touch with Ms. Mason today. We have not been successful at this point, but we'll continue those efforts. We're asking for a $5,000 SOB through pretrial. Absolutely no contact with Ms. Mason to stay away from that location if that's where she still is. No drugs, alcohol, or weapons. And we'd ask for a DVIP, Your Honor. And if you'd sound for Mrs. Mason, just in case she got our message.
Don't think there's anyone here by that name. Thank you. All right, Mr. Haddad, any objection with the stay away, no contact?
No, Judge.
All right. Mr. Taylor, on the battery charge is going to be 2,000. On the simple battery is going to be 1,000. And the cruelty, each count is going to be 500 each. Your total bond is going to be 5,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. You'll have to report to pretrial once a month. No further contact with Kiara Mason, and you are to stay away from 1903 Drew Drive, if that's where Miss Mason currently lives. You are to also have no contact with the minor children that you share with her. If you wish to have any contact with the minor children, you must file a separate legitimation action and get a court order to establish joint visitation and joint custody. Within 30 days of being released, you must provide the court with your new mailing address, and you must also enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. This is a 26-week program that you will have to pay and attend without skipping any classes. Your next court date is going to be sent to your new address. Yes, Mr. Taylor?
Your Honor, what is the best, how you sign up for that? I don't know about all that.
The domestic violence program?
Now.
You have to Google that, or you can ask your pretrial officer for a list of qualified pretrial schools, qualified DBIP schools, but it's called a family violence program or a domestic violence program. You can also reach out to the public defender's office to get assistance on a qualified program.
Okay, you said I got to report to the pretrial?
You report to pretrial services. You will get a information on how to attend an orientation, and then they will give you instructions on how to report once a month.
Okay, so I go down soon, I get released?
You will get instructions from your orientation.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, it was 3 cruelties to children, so that will make 4,500.
You're correct. Thank you.
Next, we can go to
Okay. Next case.
Mr. Sinkfield, that is position number 15.
This is State versus Garen Sinkfield, accused of willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer from August 10th of 2024. Mr. Sinkfield, you have been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Haddad. Your case number is 24CR 7978Y. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
I think like 78, 2024 FTA. I saw a bench warrant from Mac Burney that he signed. 2024 obstruction, shoplifting, another FTA, trespass from this year.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a warrant, an incident from August the 10th of 2024 from 55 Hilliard Street Southeast at about 4:30 p.m. Police had gone to the location to execute a failure to appear. The defendant has at least 3 that I see from this year. I'm not sure which one it was. Oh, 4 actually. There they went to the location, apartment 420. That's the Veranda Auburn Points Apartments. Police actually pulled up in a marked vehicle, and the defendant saw that vehicle and fled on foot. One officer specifically, Sergeant Powell, gave chase on foot, but lost sight of the defendant and stopped. So because they already knew who he was, and they were there to serve a warrant, they obtained another warrant for obstruction, Your Honor. He's got a $600 surety. There's no reason to change that. We would just ask that he only be released to his hold.
And the holds are with the accountability court program, correct?
It looks like it. Looks like he was just in 2022 had to enter into a Hope House. So that may be.
I'm not sure what's going on with his progress through that accountability court, but his bond is going to be set at $1,000. It's a signature bond through the jail, but he's got the bench warrant hold from that court. So
Thank you, Judge.
his next court date will be sent to his current address. Thank you.
I know. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
He knows what's going on. Next case, please. Deputy, do we have any other cases in the, I have a Michael Price.
We have two more cases, but I believe.
Waiver. Mr. Price is going to be a waiver judge, and I
Okay.
can just be briefly heard, or
Go ahead. Mr. Michael Price is 24 CR 7974H. And I'm sorry, who's my litigation manager? Is it Mr. Jordan as well? And hosting too. He's double duty today. Okay. Please go ahead and submit the waiver of appearance to Mr. Jordan. Any priors on Mr. Price?
8, giving false name, trespass, on probation for burglary, 2nd degree, interference with government property, 2nd degree, 2021 FTA, 2019 arson, dismissed.
And Ms. Allen, what's your recommendation for Mr. Price?
We're asking for $1,000 surety, Your Honor, and to stay away from the location. This was the Beauty Exchange Supply Store at 645 Cascade Avenue. It's reported by management there that he'd been told repeatedly to stay away and not return. He'd been given a criminal trespass warning November the 8th of 2024. He did do first offender in 2019 on an arson case, had multiple revocations on that. He's got a PI conviction, and has been on our competency calendar in the past. He has an open felony that he was on first appearance for on the 5th for damaging his ankle monitor. So I believe he's part of a program or monitored that way through probation.
Your Honor, no objection to the state's recommendation.
All right. Bond is set at $1,000 surety. Stay away from 645 Cascade Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. The Beauty Exchange Store. What do you exchange? So
Beauty.
For Braves?
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay. All right. And the other matter we have is Eden Trimble, position 19.
You know, likewise, that's going to be a waiver, Judge.
All right, sir. Please submit your waiver. This is Mr. Eden Trimble, 24 CR 7943A, accused of harassing communications and terroristic threats and acts. Yes, any priors, Mr. Howard?
2nd arrest, on probation out of state court for battery DV. You want the case number?
Yes, please.
24 CR 002 685A.
658A.
685A.
685A. Got it. Thank you. And Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from the 28th of November. Police were called to 1451 Pine Tree Way, apartment H. There they met with the victim. His name is Chandler Kuhnmeyer. I'll spell that for you. Knoonemeyer. And Chandler is Chanler. He reported receiving text messages and phone calls from the defendant, who he realized was an individual that worked for him. He was a manager at Papa John's, and this defendant, Mr. Trimble, worked there for about 2 weeks. He said the last time he'd had contact with him was April of 2024. He randomly received a text from the defendant asking about helping him make a connection with a young woman. He declined that request and immediately started to receive threatening text messages. He asked him not to return his calls and blocked the number. He then started receiving messages from a different unknown number. Police did a research on the numbers that were used to contact this victim, and both of them came back as numbers registered to the defendant. He did come through in April with a battery family violence against his brother and pled guilty just August the 19th to battery family violence. He also was arrested on the 3rd of December and in Superior Court has a criminal damage to property in the 2nd-degree case. His mother is the victim. He's already been ordered to stay away from the residence. That's where his mother and his brother live. Not related to this case, Your Honor. So we spoke to the victim in this case. Obviously, he is alarmed. He's not sure how the defendant decided to target him. He reported that in the messages, the defendant identified his home address, so he knew where he lived. Thankfully, the victim has moved since then, but in the same complex. So we would request that the defendant be ordered to stay away from the Elliott at Roswell Apartments there off of Payne, P-A-I-N, Tree Way, and have no contact with Mr. Knunenmeyer. We'd ask for a $4,000 surety, Your Honor, and an MHET, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons unless they're prescribed. There seems to be an issue here.
Mr. Haddad?
Your Honor, no objection as far as the monetary bonds. I mean, honestly, Judge, he's not going to be able to bond out. He's on a no bond status on the felony charge.
I noticed, yeah.
So I would just ask not to impose the MHAT. I'm sure he'll be back for SAP, Judge, and I'll have a social worker go out and interview him and see what's needed for him.
But Mr. Haddad, they haven't even been able to interview him at the jail. Like, he's been in jail since the 3rd on my SEA every single day.
Except, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
Ms.
you
Allen.
talk to him?
Yes, I was able to actually speak to him. So that I think whatever issue he seems to be doing better.
Good. Okay.
I'm going to let you make the call whether he should get a social worker visit or not, Mr. Haddad. But right now his bond is $4,000. It's a surety bond. No contact with Chandler Knunenmeyer. Yeah. Knoonemeyer.
Yes.
To stay away from the entire apartment complex. I have 1451 Raintree Way.
Oh, maybe I made a mistake. I said Payne Tree. I apologize.
All right, this is the interesting name for a complex. Okay. But Raintree Way in Roswell, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. And it's recommended that he have a social worker visit. Next court date is December 19th.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, Deputy, I think we are done. Thank you. We're done?
I missed that amount.
Oh, 2,000 on each count. It's 4,000 total.
Thank you.
Mr. Haddad, if you have any success getting family members for him on the phone, we would join you in any recommendation or release to some treatment or something like that. Okay.
Sure, I actually happened to be the attorney who handled the plea in front of Judge Roth, so I remember him. But I'll check. I think we can track down the mom at least and see what we.
Well, mom's the victim in the criminal trespass damage case.
Right.
Okay. So on position 1, it was a 3,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1. Position 2 is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1 with an ADET and a DVIP requirement. John Hunt was a $1,000 signature bond through the jail. 4 is a $1,000 surety bond with a release to the Cobb County matter. Reset date is 12/19. Position 5 and 6, Mr. Lyons. Position 5 is a $1,500 cash bond only, December 19, and 6 is a $1,000 surety. Position 7, McCohen is a $1,000 signature bond through the jail. 8, Mosia is a $1,500 signature bond through pretrial level 1. Position 9 is a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial. and 10 is $1,000 signature bond through pretrial. 11 outlaw is a, what did I say? 2,500 signature bond through pretrial level 1 with a DVIP requirement. Position 12 Perry is a $1,200 surety bond, reset December 19. 13 Price is $1,000 surety, reset date December 19. 14 Brownsville is $1,000 surety, reset date 12/19. Position 15 Sinkfield's $1,000 signature bond through pretrial. But he's got a bench warrant in a felony case, so that's going to hold him. Position 16 Taylor is a 4,500. I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan?
You originally said something on bond through jail on 15.
For which 15?
Supposed to be pretrial?
Oh, no, it's jail. Excuse me. It is jail. Correct. Position 16, Taylor is a 4,500 signature bond to pretrial level 1. 17 is a 500 signature bond through the jail. And position 18 is a 1,500 surety bond. Reset date is December 19. Position 19 is a $4,000 surety bond. Reset December 19. Position 20 is a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1. Position 21 is a $3,000 surety bond, reset date December 19. On the add-on calendar, Mr. Ochu is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1 with a DVIP requirement. And position 2 is a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1. All right, Deputy, I think we're all done. Okay, folks. You all have a great weekend. See you next time.
Thank you.
Nice
Judge,
to
are
see
you
you,
working
Mrs.
tomorrow?
Rosenhoover.
Good to see you too, Miss Allen and Judge Law. Good to see everybody.
All right, welcome back,
Great
Ms.
weekend.
Rosenhoover. Take care.
Yeah. So what's going on? Where's Mr. Cook?
He's